Hi, in today's video we'll discuss 5 main masculine archetypes. If you're a man, you will understand yourself more, that's for sure. You will understand your behaviors, why you act as you act, and where you can grow as a man in your masculinity. And if you're a woman and you found this video, then this video will help you to understand men better, their psychology, or maybe you're just in general interested in psychology, then this video will be extremely useful for you as well. Anyway, let's dive into this. But first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Alina. I am a manifestation femininity coach right now, but I have psychological degree, certifications in coaching, and so on. So yeah, I operate with this information pretty well. And I've been discovering archetypes, feminine, masculine, for years. So yeah, I'll share with you everything that I discovered by myself. The first masculine archetype is the prince archetype. In feminine archetypes, there is the maiden archetype, which is about inner girl. The same thing works with men in their inner boy. So every human being, doesn't matter what's your gender, men, women, we all have inner children within us. And in terms of men, it's about their inner boy, so therefore the prince archetype. Who is an inner child, actually? This is an essential part of our psyche, which is responsible for our resource, our emotions, our sexual energy, by the way, too. But sexual energy in terms of, our excitement from this life, our resourcefulness, and so on. So how much of energy and resources, internal resources, we have. And if a man's inner child is really traumatized, of course it will be a really unpleasant experience to interact with this kind of man. If a man has the prince archetype in the positive, how does he look like? And if this archetype is one of the main ones for him, because in terms of the prince archetype, everyone has an inner child, of course, but it doesn't mean that it's a leading archetype, because men, in the same way as women, have main, maybe 2, 3 maximum archetypes. Maybe there's one, but this is really unfortunate experience, because a man will show only one side of him, while there's more shades of every human being. And if you show yourself only through one archetype, most certainly you will express a lot of negativity as well. While if you have, for example, 2 main archetypes at least, you will have more shades, more facets, and your personality will be way more interesting for yourself, first of all, and for any interaction and communication. If a man has the prince archetype and it's the leading archetype, so how does he look like in the positive? In some way, he can be seen as a childish man. But if he has other archetypes that can balance him, but if we're talking about only the prince archetype, of course, it's a really childish man, and he is not attractive to any woman, honestly. Only to the women who are also immature, or they're like really young, because now I have an example of Romeo and Juliet. They were both young, naive. Yeah, they had this romantic story, but still, this is how it looks like. This is how a man acts, behaves, if the prince archetype is a leading for him. But the good sides of it, of course, is that he's more energetic, he's more, again, passionate, maybe emotional in a good way, so he can express his feelings freely, because, for example, a man with the warrior archetype has a lot of issues with this. And just in general, he's more vibrant and has a lot of vital energy. That can be attractive as well. If he has this archetype in the negative, well, if any individual has unhealed inner child, the communication is really sick here. So, for example, is really sick and toxic. So, for example, this kind of men, they will always look for mother figure in a woman. So he can be like sugar baby. I don't know how it's called for men. So he can look for like sugar daddies or sugar mommies, I don't know, to support him, to to cover his needs and so on, which is again extremely immature, especially for a man who doesn't take responsibilities, masculine responsibilities here. He's also way too emotional because of his traumatized inner child. That's what makes him extremely emotional, extremely aggressive also to, I don't know, a simple situations or a conflict. Because, for example, a man with the king archetype, he's mature and he understands if there's a conflict, for example, with your partner, then you can solve it through a dialogue, for example. Yeah, but here you will see a lot of emotions, a lot of this and that, and a lot of aggression and so on, like in Turkish series, for example. So this is the prince archetype in the negative. Of course, he's immature, he doesn't take any responsibilities for his life. Just having this archetype in the negative is really, really not the most pleasant experience. So I recommend you to, if for example you found yourself here, usually it's young men, like you're maybe like 18 or around this age, then I recommend you to understand what are your other archetypes and to unleash them. So it will balance you a lot and will help you to grow in your masculinity. The second archetype I'd like to discuss is the warrior archetype. I mentioned it earlier, and this is a really interesting and really uncommon archetype among men. So if you're watching this video and like you're in your 20s, 30s or older, I'm sure you have this archetype. Most probably. Well, the warrior, the name of it, okay? So there are different stages of maturity in a man. The first stage is the prince. It's a child. The second stage is the warrior. This is a man who is psychologically in the teen years, which is still a child, by the way. And there is the king, maturity, the masculinity in the highest form. But anyway, even if I told you right now that like it's about the teen years psychologically, it doesn't mean this is something bad, because you need this teen energy also in your reality. And let me explain you more. So the warrior is all about logic, rationality, rational decisions, 10 steps ahead, a lot of planning for himself, his work, business, partnership, and so on. So this man extremely logical, and he reminds me from Tarot Knight of Swords, this type of energy. It's not the King of Swords, because this archetype isn't about full maturity yet, but still there's like this in-between stage between an inner child and between an adult within you. So that's why it's also about a lot of aggression and a lot of sexual energy, a lot of movements towards your goals. Man has this archetype as the leading. For him, of course, he has a lot of aggression, but aggression in a good way, because aggression is our force that makes us confident, creates our personal boundaries, helps us to have a good self-esteem, self-image, and so on. And for men, the feeling of aggression is essential because it's about his testosterone and therefore like everything masculine in his reality. So there is nothing wrong with the aggression in a good way if this archetype is the leading one for you, and in the positive, of course. So therefore, in the positive, this type of man, he will be so rational about everything. Like literally about everything. If you a woman and you ask him like, I want a bag, he will need a rational explanation why you need this bag and why it costs that much. You will need to explain him like, I'm serious, why you want this bag and why it costs that much. And if your rational explanation will be good enough for him and his logical mind, because this type of men, they're really logical, like really logical. You can talk about like intuition and so on to him because this is like a weird thing for them. Like, of course, any man has intuition too, but it's more of a feminine energy. And a man with the warrior archetype has a lot of masculine energy. And again, teen masculine energy. So yeah, he needs a lot of rational explanations. But at the same time, this man is good about responsibilities and rules. They like rules a lot. Like they need rules in everything. They need rules in work, in relationship. They will make prenup usually if they will be in a marriage, and I honestly support it too. So they need the rules too as well, and they live by rules, they live by discipline. It's easy for them, they're really disciplined, and therefore this archetype creates a lot of masculinity in the man as well, because this archetype is solely about the masculine energy. And if a man embodies this archetype, he's masculine, like extremely masculine too, in the positive as well. But if a man has this archetype in the negative, so how does it look like? Well, this man can be extremely logical and extremely rational. And if we're talking about a relationship with a woman isn't like you know. She operates through feelings and emotions and intuition. And you will like have to compromise your logic and rationality towards her if you want to build a relationship with a woman. Like you have to hear her and how she feels, okay? Because if a man will be like too rational and a man with leading the warrior archetype in negative, they're too rational. This is like a really uncomfortable communication with a woman. Yeah, you can use your rationality in your work among men because it's like your language, but with a woman, it's not our language. Okay, like you have to adapt, you know, and to unleash your feminine side too, because any man has inner woman too, like any man. And if a man accepts his inner woman, um develops an inner woman in a healthy way, this is like, I don't know, a man of a dream, seriously. His rationality can kill literally anything in terms of women and communication with women. And just in general, they're like too, you know, rigid to emotions, to feelings, to show feelings, to expressing feelings. And honestly, women again in communication with this type of man, they really lack, you know, this emotions, because women need emotions, women need feelings. Talking through the feminine side here, mostly we don't like it. We like that man can easily express his feelings, emotions, complimenting us, and so on. And here a man has, of course, issues. And the third issue, I think, is about his aggression. They have way too much of aggression. way too much of, forcing things, aggressively speaking to other people, or just aggressively reacting to any situation, because again, it's about teen energy. And when a man in his teen years, he has a lot of, aggression. So therefore, he expresses it too much in the wrong ways if he has this archetype in the leading position in the negative. So that's a general picture about this archetype. Third archetype is completely opposite to the warrior, is the artist. The artist archetype. This archetype contains the lover archetype for a man, and just in general the feminine side in a man as well. As I mentioned earlier, any man has the feminine energy in him. Any man. If you're a man, you have an anima, psychologically speaking. An anima is your inner woman. And your inner woman decides what kind of women you will attract in your reality. It decides also your emotions, feelings, your connection to your intuition, and so on. So all the feminine traits. And it doesn't mean that if you accept your inner woman, you will become feminine. No, the opposite way actually. You will be more attractive to women because they will feel he's safe, because he accepts his feminine side in him. That's it, the opposite way actually. This archetype is solely about feminine side in a man, and also about his self-expression, because the artist requires to have a lot of chi on this chakra so he can express his art easily and a lot. So the artist archetype is about men who are like basically artists, so singers, actors, painters, writers, and so on. So this type of men, they have to accept their inner woman and to develop her. That's really important in terms of this type of men. And if you resonate with this energy right now, then it means that you shouldn't be afraid to tap into your feminine side more, into your intuition, into your feelings, because that's really essential and important in terms of your work, in your job, and what you do. So a man with the artist archetype in the positive, of course, it's like a man of dreams for many, many women. Why? Because he understands women. He understands his inner woman. He accepts her. He cherishes her within. And that's why women are attracted to him. They feel safe with him because he is safe with his feminine side within. That's the logic of it. Of course, as I mentioned, it's a really artistic man. He easily expresses his feelings, emotions. This type of man, he will be extremely romantic. He will plan extremely romantic dates where you'll go, and he will take a lot of beautiful photos for you as well. So they have this sense of beauty within them. That personally attracts me a lot. They usually know how to dress, how to be a good father, how to be a good husband, because they respect the feminine a lot. But in the negative, this is a feminine man, because they have way too much of feminine energy, and therefore there is no balance in them. That's why it's important, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the video, to have different archetypes. For example, if a man has the artist archetype and the king archetype, this is a beautiful combination, really beautiful. So he's really masculine, mature, but at the same time he really cherishes and loves his woman a lot, for example. That's really beautiful personally for me. It reminds me of Sultan Suleiman, because he also had the artist within him. He made jewelry, for example. It's also about the artist archetype. But in the negative, yeah, they're too emotional, like the prince archetype, too immature, and so on. They need this balance of the masculine within them. So they need to develop the masculine traits in them, like responsibility, discipline, like consistency, and so on. The fourth masculine archetype is the magician. That's an interesting one for me. So the magician is about an intuitive man, but it's a little bit different in terms of like the feminine within a man. Why is that? Because a man with the magician archetype, yes, he is really intuitive, but it's more about his different side to this world. Usually this type of men, they work in IT industry. They're like really innovative. For example, Elon Musk, he's also the magician, that's for sure. Mark Zuckerberg, who created Facebook, Pavel Durov, who's also a creator of Telegram, they all have the magician archetype. This type of men, they're creators. They think out of box. They are intuitive too, because they see the trends before they come to this physical reality. And of course, it's about intuition and, this different side to the world, this innovative mindset and the way of thinking. Plus, this type of men, they can be spiritual practitioners. So they practice some techniques, manifestations, or they teach them. So a man who has the magician archetype in the positive thinks indifferently to other people. And that's what can make him extremely rich. Like, for example, Elon Musk. He's a perfect example of this archetype in a man. He's also really creative, but not like the artist archetype, more like because of his intuition, because of his connection with the spiritual realm, with like the quantum field, he can just feel the trance and to channel them way they become trance. Therefore, it can make him extremely rich, as I mentioned earlier as well. And the last archetype, the fifth one, the king archetype. The king archetype is explained by me in another video, so I won't put here such a detailed and deep explanation as I had in my previous video, so please watch it. I'll have a link in the description box. But in general, this is like the last stage of masculinity and maturity in a man. That's a really beautiful archetype, which is about maturity, the highest form of masculinity. Watch my another video about the king archetype. I also have a meditation for men that can help them to embody the king archetype as well. So you can listen to this, to practice it, and to embrace it within you. And this is basically it. Thank you for watching. Please leave a thumbs up for an energy exchange. Leave a comment if you have questions or you want to share your thoughts. It's really important for me for an energy exchange as well. It will help other people to find this video as well. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Thank you. Bye bye.